There are 4 empty apartment blocks in O'Devany Gardens which were detenanted in order to begin demolition and redevelopment. Now they are standing derelict, an eyesore for remaining residents, a danger for local kids and a magnet for antisocial behaviour. If the regeneration projects are left to languish at this stage, starved of investment because no one knows what is going to happen to them, hemorrhaging tenants, the residents of these estates will find themselves living in conditions that are worse than before the regeneration process began. As one mother told me on Monday, 18 months after residents were promised a transformed neighbourhood and the homes of their dreams, there is nothing in O'Devany Gardens for kids to play with except bits of rubble. Will another generation of children grow up knowing nothing except the failed policies of the past? Decaying blocks of flats, no green space or safe place to play, and more of their own neighbourhood becoming a no-go area. That is what is at stake here tonight. We in Dáil Éireann cannot let another generation of children grow to maturity in housing that is not fit for them or their families. After all, what is our national wealth for, if not to improve the future of the nation's children? This is as true in the boom times as it is in this more sober economic climate. In fact, I would argue that at a time when talk is of cutbacks and hard decisions, it is even more incumbent on us to ensure that our collective wealth is used to protect those who stand to suffer the most. Even during the boom years, it is clear that the trickle down of wealth did not travel very far. It is disturbing that in a country which built over 600,000 new houses and apartments in the past decade, 44,000 households find themselves on local authority housing waiting lists. The construction boom fuelled our economic growth for the past 5 years, sending unprecedented amounts of money in stamp duty and VAT receipts flowing into the exchequer. Meanwhile, in the private sector, big developers were the biggest winners in a property bubble that kept prices high. Yet it seems that the profits of the construction boom stopped at the thresholds of the neighbourhoods which needed it most. There are still pockets of the 1980s in our 21st century capital city. It is a particularly cruel blow to the residents of these complexes that despite regeneration plans so long in the making, they should be the first victims of a downturn in profits in the construction industry. Public-private partnerships were lauded as the risk-free solution to public housing provision. Instead, it turns out that all the risk has been borne by Dublin City Council and by the residents of St Michael's Estate, O'Devany Gardens, Infirmary Road, Dominic Street and Sean McDermott Street, while the developer, Mr McNamara, was able to walk away without consequence. But with respect, Mr McNamara does not have to live in O'Devany Gardens or Dominic Street. He does not have to look out every morning onto empty flats in a state of half demolition or worry about where his children are playing. The residents of those complexes have to live with the consequences of the collapse of this PPP every day, just as they have been living with the consequences of poor housing and planning for years. But we're not here tonight to argue over who is to blame. We are here to find a solution so that these regeneration projects can go ahead as soon as possible. This is why we are asking the Minister for the Environment to remove the developer from the remaining projects. These regeneration schemes are simply too urgent to be tied up for years in the courts. Secondly, we are calling on the Minister for the Environment to take direct responsibility for funding and delivering the 5 social and affordable housing projects in question. These regeneration projects need to be undertaken whether a private developer is willing to take them on or not. The future of these communities and of the children who are growing up in them cannot be dependent on the whims of the housing market. Years of hard work and commitment by the residents of these communities has gone into creating a vision of what their neighbourhoods could be, what their neighbourhoods should be. They have fulfilled their part of the bargain. It would be unconscionable to squander that effort and goodwill and to leave those projects to gather dust. Now is the time for the government to take the responsibility which has been bestowed on them by the people to deliver the homes and the social and physical regeneration that these areas so desperately need. Our motion tonight is not about party politics. It is about finding a solution to the collapse of these PPP agreements so that the homes promised to the residents of St Michael's Estate, O'Devaney Gardens, Infirmary Road, Dominic Street and Sean McDermott Street can be built. It is about rectifying the mistakes of the past, mistakes whose consequences we see every day in all of our constituencies. But most of all, it is about restoring hope and acting on the principle that all of the nation's children deserve the best future that we can offer them. And that is why I ask for support for this motion and why I ask the government to withdraw the mealy-mouthed amendment that it has tabled to our motion here tonight.